and I started
Wow.
doing wound care for 19 weeks on a wound vac. And I still
Oof.
remember it was Dr. Ross, and she told me, "You need to pick up a new sport. Never ever run again. You should never ever run again because you're just going to get injured."
Oh my
And
goodness.
I had an awesome sports therapist, and I went into him, and he had a different attitude that says, "Well, you've had to replace 3 times. What's the fourth going to hurt?" So I rehabbed really, really hard. Actually, um, paced the Wasatch that year that I had my Achilles replaced. And then the next year is when I got into the bear. When I crossed the finish line, I said I did it. And that was, you know, my flip off to the doctors that told me I couldn't do it, you know?
Running 100 miles seems impossible, and maybe even kind of crazy. And it is, but we believe in big crazy dreams. That's why we ran 100 miles. It was such a life-changing experience for us, we decided to devote this podcast to preparing and inspiring you to run your first ultra race.
Are you ready to feel the highest highs and the lowest lows? Are you ready to do what you once thought was impossible? Are you ready for your trail to 100? Thank you for joining us today here on Trail to 100, the podcast made to help you finish your first 100-mile race. My name is Jacob Bateman, and joined along with me today is my beautiful and lovely wife, Melody.
It's been a long time.
Yeah, this is my favorite part when I get to say my beautiful and lovely wife, Melody.
And then waiting to hear what I say.
Hear the awkwardness, seeing the
Awkward?
seeing the little smile
You
on your
think I'm
face.
awkward?
Sometimes, yeah.
Well, I think you're awkward
Good,
sometimes.
good. I wouldn't be human if I wasn't.
I love you.
Love you too. Anyways, today, guys, we had the honor of talking to Jon Hallows, but he does not go by Jon Hallows, ladies and gentlemen. We call him HB. It stands for Honey Badger.
And then flash a honey badger on the screen with some
Yes.
cool background music.
Yeah,
right
or a honey badger attacking an elephant.
Yeah.
Anyways, if you've seen that video of a honey badger attacking an elephant, go look it up.
I haven't. I thought you were just making that up.
Go look it up. It's one of the most funny things I've ever seen in my life. Anyways, but Honey Badger's got a great story, guys. This is a man who's had 3 surgeries on his Achilles while he was trying to train for a 100-mile race.
And it didn't slow him down at all.
So he overcame a lot. Like, it did maybe slow the timeline down.
It did slow the time.
Yeah.
But I mean, he never stopped training.
He never stopped believing. And it's amazing.
Don't stop believing. It's late.
Okay.
Sorry, keep going.
So I love his story. He's a good friend of ours. We've been waiting to have him on because we wanted to have this capper of him finishing his first 100-miler. He ran the Bear 100. So let's get to it. The Honey Badger. Thank you for joining us today, Honey Badger. We are so excited to have you on the podcast. This has been long overdue.
That was the first thing I thought before we started recording. I'm like, is this really your first time on the podcast? That's really surprising to me.
We were waiting for him to get that 100-mile finish.
That's right.
Anyways, and so we're going to hear what took so long to get that. Anyways, Honey Badger, give us, before we get to your running journey, give us a little introduction. Who are you outside of running?
Outside of running, I'm a single father of 5 children, and I work for the Air Force at Hill Air Force Base. I'm going on my 25th year there. And so I spend a lot of time at work, and then outside of work, as a single dad, I'm try to be at every event. And my boys, they're the ones that I spend the most time with now. They're 12 and 17. So I spend a lot of time at their activities when I'm not training. So that's what I do most of the time. And then now I get to start fitting in dating along with that. So
Woohoo!
that's a different adventure.
Maybe we should do a dating podcast.
No. No, thank you. Anyways, that's Melody's new endeavor. Anyways,
Roll to 100 love. I don't know.
I mean, it's our love story.
It is
love
our love
connection
story.
to 100.
It is.
Yeah.
Anyways, okay. Well, Honey Badger, where does running come into all this? As you just completed the 100-mile distance, a lot of single dads are out there, I feel like, just trying to survive and don't even want to think about running a 5K. How did you begin your running journey?
So I go back about 10, 11 years when I started going through a divorce. And so after my divorce, that was my solace. That was my dopamine. That was everything that, you know, single dad. I wanted to devote everything I could money wise to my children. And running to me was cheaper. I mean, I could go run a mountain. All I had to do is go buy a couple $100 pairs of shoes, and then run the soles off of them. And I did that when I didn't have my kids. So, plus, then I went through a really bad 5-year custody battle for my 2 younger boys. And that was hell on earth. But being able to know that, hey, I can go and be close to the Lord and go out and enjoy the trail and have some of my friends. I mean, actually, through this divorce journey, I met you guys on one of our hikes years ago up on Maylands. And then actually, when you and I were talking the other night, Jacob, about doing this podcast, we were talking about taking pictures of Kim and Melody, and then you walked by, or ran by, and didn't even know your wife was out there taking pictures. So,
Oh, yeah.
this whole divorce actually, I've gained a lot of different friends being able to be divorced. And I've been in the running community. I've had my own running groups. And it's just a thing that saved my life if I really look at it overall. So
That's amazing. Yeah. You've told me that story before, and it's cool to see, because I didn't see pre-running Honey Badger. I just met you out there on that hike, and you were kicking butt, and you were telling me how you were going to do the Bear 100 one day. I remember you saying that on that hike, and that was, what was that, 2021 maybe?
Was it 2021?
Yeah.
2021 or 2022.
Yeah, somewhere in that time frame. And so, Honey Badger, you had, let's go to that moment. You were, I think that was 21 when I met you that summer, and you were training hard. You were working towards that 100-mile goal, and I think you wanted to go do Bear the next year, if I'm not mistaken.
correct. Yeah, I kind of met. I mean, one of my mentors was Jeff Galloway, and that story was, I mean, I was a marathon runner all my life. I did marathons and half marathons, and somebody hooked me up with Mr. Galloway, Jeff, and he's like, "Well, I'm going to see what you're really made of," And then he told me, hey, you can do a 50. And after I think my first 50K, I met you out on, I think I did Connor's Claim, and I met you guys out on a race out there on White Pine one year.
Yeah.
And that was a changing point. Once you finish those little races, it gives you that little confidence and that little kick in the butt.
Yeah.
But then issues happen with injuries and stuff from running as well. So
take me that, because you finished White Pine, and we ran that race the same year. That was what? 22?
Yeah, 22, I think.
Yeah, that was the year of 22. You ran White Pine, and this is the race for all our listeners out there. This is a 55K out near Tooele, Utah, that has over 12,000 feet of vert, and it's just a gnarly race. Not a lot of Well, there's a long stretches without aid in this race, and
Really technical, not very many groomed trails.
yes, heat of the day. You finished that race, and in my opinion, anyone who can finish that race is right on track to run 100 miles, especially a mountain 100. You finished that race, you got to be feeling pretty good about yourself and pursuing a 100-mile distance next, correct?
That was my goal, yes.
So what happened?
I did a couple other races that year. I ended up going down to run a half marathon at Lake Powell. And one of my friends actually had some complications with dental, and I didn't run. And I actually went into my foot doctor, and I was told that I had a torn Achilles tendon. So they told me, well, you want to see what happens? I'm like, no, let's just get it done. So I had an Achilles replacement or reconnect that year, mid October, around sometime. And then after that surgery, I did my rehab so I could come back and be able to do more races. And actually, I got to come back in the next year, and I ran again some. And then it was about 18 months after that. I think I did a few more races. I did the speed go that year, and then after my first Achilles, I had 18 months, and I got injured again. And I did another race. I actually was doing the Skyline 50K, and I couldn't finish that race with my shoes on. I took my shoes off, half mile out, walked it in, and then I went to my surgeon again, and he said, hey, you're cut at 95% again. You need to have your Achilles replaced again.
Oh my
Was this the
gosh.
same Achilles?
Same Achilles, right foot. And so then I had it replaced.
How did you feel?
Well, you feel depleted, but I knew that I'd had it done before. I'm like, I can do it again. You know, it takes a lot of rehab, a lot of friends, family getting you out there, but that's just been my grit, you know. And
How
so
long does
then
the rehab take? Generally.
normally, I mean, my first rehab took me about 6 months,
Okay.
but it takes about a year until you feel normal.
Okay. That
Then
makes
my
sense.
second one I had replaced in September, but then in December I just wanted to get back out. I still had a hole in my heel, and they said go ahead and run.
Awesome.
And then my surgeon, I went back to him in the February of that year and said, I still have a hole in my heel. What's up? And he's like, you shouldn't have that. And he was a little angry, sent me to another hospital, and they said, you got staph infection.
Oh my
And
gosh.
so then I had to go and get with the Utah disease, or the guy that's over the Utah Disease Center, Dr. I couldn't even remember his name. They gave me all of this medicine to kill all the staph. And then that March, April, I had my third Achilles. They actually went in and took out all the hardware in my foot and just relayed it in. And I started doing wound care for 19 weeks on a wound vac. And I still remember it was Dr. Ross, and she told me, you need to pick up a new sport. Never ever run again. You should never ever run again, because you're just going to get injured.
Oh my
And
goodness.
I had an awesome sports therapist named Mike Smith, and I went into him, and he had a different attitude that says, well, you've had it replaced 3 times. What's the fourth going to hurt? So I rehabbed really, really hard. Also, during that year, I put my name in for the Bear. I actually paced the Wasatch that year that I had my Achilles replaced. I paced Jeff Galloway, and then the next year is when I got into the Bear, and I also paced the Wasatch this last year. So it, that was part of it. I remember when I mean, we'll probably cover this later, but when I crossed the finish line, I said I did it. And that was, you know, my flip off to the doctors that told me I couldn't do it, that was my
Yeah.
goal, was kind of,
You never
you
tell a
know,
runner that you'll never run again. I
yeah,
mean,
don't tell a runner you can run.
yeah. I mean, unless maybe you amputate both legs or something, but
Yeah.
come on.
Yeah. So
So,
that was my journey to that.
so you said that you weren't fully healed from your surgery when you put in for bear. Is that correct?
Correct. Well, I think that first year I didn't make it. I think it was the second year that I put in,
Oh,
but I
okay.
did take the Wasatch that same year that I had my Achilles replaced.
That's a lot of faith to be like, okay, I've gone through these multiple surgeries, a staph infection, wound care, and I'm going to run 100 miles now. I'm just going to put in and we're just going to make it happen.
Oh yeah. And actually, I think that same year I ran my first 50. I ran the White Pine that August
Wow.
that I had my Achilles replaced. So I did my first 50 that year. And that's when I think I did my last White Pine. I did a White Pine that year. That's
Did you
when
do smaller races leading up to that 50?
I did the White Pine, which we know how I
Yeah.
almost,
That's about equivalent to a 50, I'd say.
yeah, that
I
was
don't know
my,
if I call that smaller than.
Yeah.
so yeah, I mean, that was
Wow.
really all I did. I mean, every year I like to do the Bear Gutsman. That's kind of our local race in Fruit Heights. I love to do that. So
So I guess I want to know the thought process of, okay, I'm going to do White Pine and a 50 and a 100 miler, because I feel like if I were in your situation, I would be like, okay, we're starting all over from square one. We're going to work on running 1 mile and then a 5K, and I'd kind of build up all over again. So, what was your thought process? And I'm not saying that like what were you thinking? I think it's inspiring and I just want to know what you were thinking.
it was
When you
actually
were like, yeah, go
New
ahead.
Year's Eve. I actually went on a hike with one of my friends out on Antelope Island. And then that next day, I met one of my friends. His name's Ryan up on Adams Canyon. And he told me, yeah, I do this every day. And so that year, I actually did Adams Canyon 370 times.
That's
And
awesome.
so, I mean, yeah, I had races and stuff, and I skipped a few days on races, but like one day I did it 7 times for a
Holy
memorial
cow.
run for my mom. And so that was kind of my thing is that, I know if I was out there and my dedication, I mean, I was out there in snow and dark and wind and seeing cat eyes at the top of the waterfall and seeing,
Ooh,
you know, coyotes and the turkeys and all that. And, honestly, I don't know if my goal was just to be, I knew you guys then. I ran with you guys. I ran with James Houghton. I ran with Jeff Galloway, Michael Whiteside, all these people that inspired me. If they can do it, but part of it is that I haven't got it into my brain. I still haven't. I'm 53, and some of these guys are in their 40s and 30s and 20s. But that's part, you're only as old as you let your mind let you be. So I can still hang with
exactly.
some of these people and have fun. That's the whole thing. It's not always about being the 18 miles like Chip A, 18-hour hundreds. It's all about finishing the race and getting it done. So,
Amen. That's what
yep,
we're about here at
yep,
Charlotte 100.
yep.
That's really cool.
So then when you get into the Bear 100 and like, okay, the big dog is here, like this is the year we're going to make it happen. What, I guess, as you start mentally preparing and figuring out what am I going to do, how did you, I guess, make a plan, or what issues did you address that you were like, okay, this is what I want to focus on getting better, so that way when the race day comes, I'm ready for
Actually called you and your wife and said, let's go. I said, I need a coach. And it was
We told him to
actually,
say that. Just kidding.
yeah, it was
it.
it was pretty close. When I got into the Bear, I actually reached out to you guys, because I've listened to all these podcasts and stuff. And, I know a lot of people. I've talked to like Jeff and James that are my buddies, and they're like, they've done them multiple times, but I'm like, I'm just going to get a coach. You know, I'm more, I mean, for my profession, I'm an analyst. So I'm analyze everything. I like numbers and I like that. So then that's why I reached out to you guys, and you guys were my coaches. And Melody probably got sick of the text sometimes and you guys,
No
but
way.
that's
Never
what
got sick of it.
that's what actually got me through a lot of it, was knowing, hey, I got to go to the gym these days. I got to do my flat runs these days. I got to do my elevation. And I think what really, really helped me is I've always been, for the last 4 or 5 years, even training to do anything, was time on feet, time on feet, time on feet. And that's one thing that Jeff Galloway always kept telling me, dude, it doesn't matter, always time on feet. And I've done a lot of time on feet and a lot of vert. And that's a lot of what our training was. I know that Melody really pushed that, was, it's not always about the miles that we're putting in. It was about the time that we're putting in. And I think that was really, really important. And the accountability to you guys, it was like, I don't know. I've grown to love you guys before you were my coaches, just between the races. But then as coaches, you guys being my coaches, I think we just meshed really well. And that was what really helped me get through my training process.
Well, right back at you, HB. We always we feel like we were talking the other night and we're like, yeah, HB is like a really fun, cool uncle, you know? Well, when you reached out, we were like, Honey Badger wants us to coach him. Heck yeah.
Yeah,
So it was awesome.
we weren't even coaching at the time, but we were like, HB wants it, it's done.
Done and done.
He wants to do his first 100. We have to help him with that.
It was awesome.
So, Honey Badger, I'm curious on this aspect. Was this your first time working with a running coach?
Yes.
Okay.
Officially,
What?
I mean, I've had
Yeah.
friends
You've
always.
talked to friends who've given you unofficial advice and things like that.
Correct.
Okay. All right. I'm just curious, as you were preparing for your 100, and it may, whether that's working with a coach or just training for 100 miles, what did you notice? What were you doing differently in your training as you were preparing for 100 that maybe you didn't do before?
I think that through the whole coaching, was I knew that as a runner, I mean, listen to multiple podcasts that you guys have had with a lot of like Browning and all these other people about how, your core aspect, and, runners think we need to just go out and run. That there's more to it than that. You got to have that base. And if you don't have the base to grow from, which I think I never really, really focused at before, was getting a firm base to build from and then running. I can go spend all day on the trail, but I might be hurting the next day. But when I can go and run and then the next day not be sore or as sore, and be able to continue the whole training circuit, I think that helps out a lot, and switching it up a lot.
100%. We got you in the gym pretty dang hard, and that was fun. Writing
Yep.
up those workouts was really fun, and I remember the very first strength plan that we made you was called climbing legs. And I remember the first time you did it, you texted me and you were like, I am wrecked. And I was
Yep.
like, that was the point. But yeah, getting that strength training in. One thing that I wanted to mention is you talked about time on feet, and it's not necessarily about getting 100-mile training weeks in, but just getting that time on feet. And the reason we emphasize that with you, and we emphasize that with most of our clients, is because the people we work with are, average Joes. We're not elite sponsored athletes with all the time in the world to train. We have normal jobs, we have families, we have other responsibilities. And it's just about fitting that training in around your life instead of making your life fit your training. you know?
Yep. I agree.
So, Honey Badger, as your training progressed and race day got closer, how were you feeling as the race is creeping up? It's imminent. It's gonna happen. What was your mindset going into the race?
Oh crap. Literally, no. I think the hardest part of honestly is, I mean, I did the I paced the Wasatch. Well, I had a runner that I was supposed to pace for the Wasatch. He didn't make it to Brighton. So I was actually going to go out that day and go do a 30-mile run. But then I picked up another guy at the lodge named Wasatch and it got him through. And then that, and then getting ready, I think the hardest part of getting ready for a race was my bags, honestly. Figuring out, I mean, you and Melody had told me these calories and this food and all of this, but getting it in there and putting it together. And I think that's the hardest part. Is you're like, I gotta, this is my lifeline, for the first 3 or 4 aid stations. You don't have your crew there, and having that and um, making sure which shoes you want and just trying to plan it all out. I mean, I'm a planner. I like to know, hey, these shoes are going to be my shoe from here to there. What happens if not? That's, I think. And then when we showed up to the starting line, it was raining. That's the thing is you guys have been in the races like I have, is you got to plan for the unexpected and hope you got everything out there that you need. So,
Yeah, it's a lot to think about. And you also have to you plan as well as you can, and you kind of hit on this, you also expect something to go wrong. Something always goes wrong, right? You can never plan for everything, but you try to plan for as much as you possibly can.
well, Jacob, I had a son that I had to get to a certain place that he had to meet you, logistics. And I had a vehicle there that was loaded with food. And I'm like, I don't know, I'm the type that has an extra heavy pack when I go hike Timpanogos or something. And I am always planning for everybody else. So I think that was the hardest part. Actually, starting the race was a relief to me. It was like, oh, good. I actually called somebody and said, did I leave the keys in the truck? But after I started, all of those worries went away and I went, oh crap, what did I get myself into?
Yeah.
So
No, Jon, what you bring up is so true and not talked about a lot. The stress the week before the race as the runner of trying to coordinate everything with your crew, of trying to, like you said, plan out every drop bag, plan out every hour of nutrition.
Because you don't think about this stuff until it's a few weeks before race day. Because you're just thinking about training, and now you're like, oh shoot, now I have to put all this together.
It is so time consuming. I know my last 100, I probably did the best on planning, but basically 2 weeks leading up to the race, every evening I was down in my garage trying to get it organized and figure out how am I going to do this. So it's
different
something
piles, the sticky notes,
the aid stations and what goes with crew, what goes as in drop bags, all of that.
It becomes a part-time job.
Kudos to you guys, because we had our crew meeting like a week prior. That kind of relieved a lot of my stress, so I didn't have to worry about, hey, what's Bill going to do? Hey, what's Caleb going to do? Hey, what are my crew? That's one thing when you have a crew that you just let it go at the start line and whatever happens, happens. I knew that my boy would be there for my, my first aid station and then my, and all of that. That was a relief to me after starting, because you kind of relieve that stress and it's a whole different stress. Like, okay, we got to get there.
Now, whatever's happened has happened, and it's just, you're just dealing, what you got is what you got at that point.
Yeah.
So take us through the race. You start things off. How did that first quarter, up to what you see in Caleb? I think you saw Caleb.
Yeah, I picked Caleb up at Right Hand Fork.
Right Hand Fork. So what mile is Right Hand Fork?
20 something. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's like
No, I'm
just
trying to
past a
remember too.
marathon or something like that,
Yeah.
just under 30.
Yep.
Okay, so right, I'll just call it about mile 30. Um, you get to Right Hand Fork. So how did things go leading up to Right Hand Fork?
Uh, it was kind of a party if you really think about it. I mean, everybody's going up the hill, up out of Logan. Everybody kind of gets in your little pods of your pace. I think about mile before I got to the first aid station, I actually sprained my ankle pretty bad. I slipped off a rock and I just kept going. I mean, that's just the way it is because I knew my son was a mile 30ish and and I knew my crew was there. And that was just what got me through was, we ran into some, I mean, I don't know, some issues. I mean, I was going up out of the first aid station out of there, and I don't know. I had my water filter. I stopped in the river. I was drinking water. That was one thing I know Melody really pushed me on was hydrate, hydrate, hydrate. And I really hydrated. I wasn't gonna let the wolf get my foot like we've talked in other podcasts. I know I always hear the wolf when the wolf gets you is never going to let you go. It's going to be there the whole race. So
Right,
I actually
right.
stopped along the way up the canyon and a guy was out of water and I actually stopped and said, "Hey dude, you need some water?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm not going to be able to make it." I'm like, "Okay, here's a water filter." We filled up his water and we went. And that's just, and I think that's one thing I just wanted to bring up is the difference between trail racing and road racing is the family.
Yeah.
There's nobody in the world that would stop in a marathon for me to help me with water.
Yeah.
Right.
What's it going to matter that extra 5 or 10 minutes to me? I can catch it up or I can go through an aid station. But I think my first 30 miles, I was feeling pretty good. And then because I knew that Jacob and Caleb were going to be there. So that was kind of my son and my brother basically are going to be there and how I looked at it. So I
And,
was excited to get there.
and I'm so glad we didn't disappoint you because now I'm gonna go my perspective here. I was Honey Badger's crew chief here for the Bear, and we, like you said, we were meeting up at the parking lot where you drop the truck off, but for some reason Caleb's GPS went all wonky and took him all the way across the valley to some different place, like 20 minutes away. And so all of a sudden Caleb's there. I call him and I'm like, "Hey, are you here?" And I'm like, he's like, "I think I'm here." I'm like, "Well, I'm here." And then we figure out, no,
Oh,
he's not
no.
here. And so then they come all the way over. So we're already behind on time. And then they were doing construction in the canyon. We hit 3 or 4 separate stoplights because we're trying to drop a vehicle off as well. And I am stressing that we're going to miss you, HB. And so,
And you guys are the thing that's getting him through. I'm just
yeah.
I'm just seeing this as like a movie and it's going back and forth and HB's like, I can't wait to see them. And then it's
We're
you and
sitting at a
Caleb and
stoplight for
you're
like
like
20
dripping
minutes.
sweat.
Yeah, like we were like at this light for a minimum 20 minutes. We're already running behind. And anyways, we did make it, but I think Caleb said he was only there for maybe 5 minutes because I had to just drop him off. They wouldn't let me park there. I was going to see Honey Badger at the next aid station, just like 7-8 miles down. But
And I
it
was a
was,
little early, but that's how it goes. I
yeah,
wasn't
yeah.
down.
Yeah, we got there in the nick of time. He wasn't there very long, and Honey Badger comes rolling in, and I was breathing a sigh of relief because when I dropped him off too, I was telling Caleb, go check with the aid station captain, make sure he hasn't come through. And so Caleb checked, and he gave me the green light, and so I drove off and thought, "Whew, glad we made it."
And
Anyways,
I feel like we've seen this so many times in 100-mile races where things go wrong, but somehow everything works out just in time. Somehow everything falls into place. And I personally think that that's God because he knows that it's important to us,
yeah, yeah, very true. Or it works out in an unplanned way, even.
Yeah, yeah.
So how were those miles with Caleb?
it was entertaining. We'll just say that. Caleb, I wasn't losing. I mean, we were playing crazy music. Caleb was videotaping me to make fun of me. The thing of it is we were just having fun. Being out there with my boy. I think it was mile 37 is when I picked him up, and it was like I was looking. Temple Fork is like 47, so we had like 10 miles together, and it was just interesting just to be able to be out there with my boy. That he's going to be going on a mission this year. So it might be the last time I get a run. He's 18. It was fun, and he'd never. I mean, I wasn't very wrecked yet, but he started seeing a side of me that, oh crap, dad's into this. He's at 37 miles. He's been out here for quite a while. So it was good and it was great. And I mean, until we got to one aid station, the guy wouldn't give me any water. He'd only give me
Oh,
one flask. And
oh
Caleb's like,
dear.
what the crap? You're not going to give him more than one flask of water? And I don't
What the?
know. It was just funny, your son sticking up for you. But it
Oh,
was great being able to run with him. It was like the highlight that got me to there. And then, you know, we came into the next aid station, and I had another buddy. I had a buddy waiting there, and Jacob was there, and it was like a shoe change, and we were changing. I think it was Temple Fork is where that
Yeah.
one was.
Yeah.
And I came into there, and that was our night changeover. I was
Yeah.
changing to a different pack. I was going to have my lights, and
Sun was literally setting at
it
that
was
aid
starting to come
station. So
down there, and we
yeah, you're in
knew.
the 40s now, high 40s. Yeah.
Yep. And that's where I picked up Russ Bratner, and he's one of my buddies from work, and he's a marathon runner, and he's a great guy. And that's when we started going into the night and seeing what it's all about. So,
Yeah. And
yep,
what was it all about? Because this is now you're going into new territory. You're clicking over mile 50. You'd hit the 50-mile mark a couple times before, but this is all new. You're going into the dark, into the night. How did the night go?
it was interesting. I mean, it got cold. You start seeing lights out in the front of you. I mean, it was almost reminded me of like Ragnar to a point that, oh, there's a light. I got to go get a kill, you know? Or, I mean, we were going up the trail and there's horses coming at us. It scared the crap out of us. And I mean,
Yeah.
I think you've paced on the bear before. You have these
Yeah.
cows that are out in the middle of nowhere, and you
Yeah.
turn your lights out and it's like the Milky Way of Milky Way. You get to see everything out there, and to me, I'm very, very personable. I'm open. My book's 100% open to anybody. And, I just started, talking to Russ about life and how his family is and what races he has coming up. And I think that's a lot of people don't have pacers, but I think that's what gets me through is just getting my mind off my aches and pains. I mean, I was pretty good aches and pains, I think, the whole race overall. I didn't have any major injuries, but it was just fun to have Russ out there with me during that time. And then I know, you're like, okay, Russ, and he keeps pushing me, and and then I know we got another aid station coming up, and you get to have a change out. That's the cool thing I think about hundreds and your crew is, it's almost like new energy every time you get to a new aid station. So, or
totally. New
not.
energy. Oh, sorry.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Or I mean, sometimes you skip a couple, but it's just fun because like Caleb had never been in 100, Russ had never been in 100. None of my pacers except Jeff Galloway has done 100. So I had a pretty new crew that had never done these kind of races, but to me, it's all about the fun and getting them out there too. So
And Honey Badger, as I was watching you, as I met you periodically throughout this course, I was so impressed with how, because I just kept waiting for the moment where you're like, I don't know if I got this in me, or where the Achilles was gonna flare up, or I was just waiting for the stomach was gonna go. I was waiting for that moment where the doubt might start to creep in on, is the finish actually gonna happen? I never saw it, Honey Badger. Now, I wasn't with you every step of the way. Was there ever a moment where you started doubting if a finish would happen?
Well, at mile 75, you guys always told me, oh, 75 is the game changer. You know, if you
Yeah.
make it to 75, you're going to make it. And it actually was 74.9 miles. And we were going up into Logan. I think I was going up. I'd picked up Bill Mott. He was my next pacer after, and I think we were coming up out of, I don't even know where I picked him up, Tony Grove or Franklin Basin or somewhere. And, and we were coming up, going over to Beaver Lodge. And I stopped in the middle of the night. I said, Bill, I'm done. And he went, what the heck? I'm like, yeah, it's 74.9 miles. They said, if you make it to 75, you're going to finish. And he's like, no way. And so then I'm, no, just joking. And so we just kept going. So,
Okay,
yeah, I
you got
really,
me, HB. I was like, really? 'Cause I
yeah,
didn't think you. Anyways.
overall, I mean, I think at the end, after my last aid station, I think it was after I came in to the last aid station, the final aid station, and I started the climb after mile 92. I mean, I knew my time was good, but that's where I had to pull in some grit. And I mean, we have a mutual friend that I kept leapfrogging back and forth, and I knew I leapfrogged him coming, and he passed me going up out of there, and I'm like, oh crap, I don't know if I'm gonna make it. And literally, I was going 50 steps at a time and sitting down. And then you have Jeff Galloway that was picked me up at Beaver Lodge, and everybody knows Jeff. Jeff is a goof or a jokester, and we were going through, and there were aspen trees that still had leaves on them, and he would go up and wiggle those trees and be like a little fairy. And I, and I started going delirious already. I was starting to see spaceships in the trees and cars. And that's probably but overall, I think that was the hardest part of it. But I don't think there was ever any part that said, I'm done.
Yeah.
I just wanted, there was a person I wanted to beat, and I wanted to beat him. And that was my goal. So.
Heck yeah.
Hey, a little bit of motivation, friendly, competitive spirit goes a
Oh, yeah.
long ways, especially in a situation like that where you just need anything at that point to
Pull
find
you along.
another gear. Yep, to pull you along. Like I know exactly what you mean. I've had like some people pass me on hundreds, and then all of a sudden I'm like, you know what? If they can hold that pace, I can hold that pace.
Well, I
And
came off this one mountain, and one of our mutual friends was down there. I'm like, I'm going to catch him. And it was like a quarter mile away. I did my hardest, and Jeff and I were flying, and I caught, and it was actually this guy that motivated me even more. It was a blind guy, and it was a blind guy that was running the Bear 100. And I caught up to him, and it wasn't who I was trying to catch. So I'm like, crap, I caught him. Now I got to go catch the next person.
Yeah.
But that's part of the whole motivation, is you got to have your own little self goals or markers or something that self motivate you. I've always been told by when I used to do marathons, pick a road marker and run to that road marker. And if you have to walk a few minutes after that, do it, but pick it. And that was my goal, is to pick a runner that was far enough ahead that I could catch them and pass them. And then if I needed to walk a little bit, but always keep going. So.
I love that. I love that. That's a great way to keep yourself moving at a decent clip there at the end when it is just so hard to move. So Honey Badger, how was coming across that finish line?
It was great. I mean, I had Jeff was there. You were at the finish line. I mean, that last 8 miles, I knew I'd passed you at I think I don't even know what that was. A Gibson Basin or something. I was looking back. I don't even know what the last aid station was. Ranger Dip.
Yeah.
After I came through Ranger Dip, I knew I was going to meet my goal. I think my goal was 36 hours, but I think we blew that away. I
Yeah.
think I did it in under 33 hours or 33 something. I don't even know my time. But I
Heck
knew I
yeah.
was going to beat what my goal was. And then coming down that chute, I mean, I gave you you gave me the video and I sent it back to you. You know, coming across, I was pretty wrecked, but I said I did it or something. And then I
Yeah.
gave you a hug, and then I gave Cody a hug, and then I was done. I was cooked.
Yeah.
But it was great being able to do that. You know, that was the whole end game was to finish the 100. You know, and I think that's. I mean, I had a lot of prayerful time during that time. You know, I mean, that's what I do. That's one of my things. I mean, I listened to your podcast before I went about putting Christ in running and all of that. I mean, I don't want to turn it into a religious running, but
It's
that's
okay.
what
You
it's all
can.
about. You know, that's what
Yeah.
it's all about. You know, in my condition, you know, going through my Achilles and having the custody battle for my children and being able to go through divorce and had a brother and a mother die and all of that. If you don't have a Christ centered life and have Christ as part of your life, that's what did it for me. So, and then, I mean, to me, everybody, all of my crew, all of my fellow runners, I mean, I could lead, you know, give you a list of people that are angels in my life that have got me through that journey. And you know, and that's what we're all here to do is to get through our journey. And 100 is just a minuscule part of our journey. And that's one of the journeys. I got more coming up. So
I guess
Amen.
you could say like Christ taught in parables, right? And you mentioned how 100 is a minuscule of our journey. I think 100-mile race is a parable of our life and our journey,
yep.
and there's lots of parables that could be drawn to how our Heavenly Father and our Savior Jesus Christ care about us. They love us. They want us to succeed. They want to help us, but we have to push ourselves. We have to take that next step, even though it feels we're in too deep or that we can't do it or can't
We're
go
in too
on.
much pain.
Yeah. We
Well, it
have
kind
to
of
choose to
reminds
keep
me
moving.
of the parable of the 10 virgins. You know, you got to put in your time. It's like they had to put in their
Yes.
oil or
Yeah.
they weren't going to get their light. You know, if you don't
Yeah.
put in your time, you're not going to get your buckle or your trophy at the end.
That's
So,
a great thought because you can't fake a 100-mile race. You can
correct.
fake a 5K, maybe half, maybe even a marathon, but you can't fake 100.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Honey Badger, this has been an awesome conversation. We loved coaching you. We've loved getting to know you as a friend.
We
And
love running with you.
yeah, like,
We love staying in touch with you
yeah,
and hearing about your running journey as you
yeah,
continue to run and do even bigger things.
yeah,
And I just want to thank you guys, you know, and also the people that have helped me, you know, it's actually a race up there last year in Wyoming that I helped got to be at an aid station and I was there with Jill and Yoga Mike and they're the ones that introduced me to my nerd clusters. I
Oh,
mean,
the best.
if I didn't have nerd clusters on my 100, I wouldn't have made it through. If I wouldn't have had my applesauce, I wouldn't have made it through, you know, and I mean, I had probably the weirdest nutrition. I mean, Jacob kept trying to push food, do this, try this, try this. And I was just like, nope, I need my nerds. And Jacob made sure I had my Nuries. I had a Nuri at every other aid station. I had my applesauce and I had my scratch and my tailwind. And that's what I lived off of. You know,
yeah,
the
You
only
knew what
other
worked for
food
you.
I
Yeah.
had the whole race was I had half of quesadilla and 4 tater tots. Other than that, It was my nerd clusters, and I love that's what I lived on.
That's awesome.
Yeah, you had a pretty simple nutrition plan, but it worked.
I'm
It
not
did.
gonna lie, I was slightly worried about your nutrition plan. I know that we tried to hit that and we were tracking and um, counting macros and before you went into your race, it wasn't quite where I wanted to see it personally as your coach, and I was slightly worried, but you killed it. And as I kept in touch with Jacob, he was like, he's doing great, and I think it's awesome. You know, it's really helpful to have a coach, and it all really ultimately comes down to trusting and believing in yourself, right? And you knew what worked for you and you did it and it worked. So I think that's awesome.
And you got to train with it. That's the trick.
Yes, you did super well with training with your nutrition.
Well, Honey Badger, before we let you go, we got to ask you what we ask every guest. What is your top piece of advice for someone who's looking to run 100 miles for the first time?
Get a coach. That's my number one thing is I probably wouldn't have made it. Honestly, I probably wouldn't have made it without you guys.
Oh,
And
shucks.
I'll, without you guys, and then also I'm gonna gotta give a shout out to like Jeff Galloway for getting me out there every day, Bill Mott for getting me out there every day, James Houghton for getting me out there. I mean, I run like Michael Whiteside and Michael Head or Ryan Head and all of the Davis goats. I mean, that's who we are. We love each other. We support each other. And I mean, we go do trail work together with like Chepe and Isaiah and all of these people. It's just you got to be in with the family, and that's what it is. If you don't, it's the trail family, and that's what gets you through. When you come into an aid station, they just come in and treat you like family. And if you're hurting or something, you give them something or you take something. You see somebody thirsty on the side of the road, it's just like the Savior did, to somebody that was thirsty, help them out. These are our brothers and sisters and love each other and have fun. That's the whole thing I think about it.
Well, thank you, Honey Badger. It's been a pleasure talking to you. Congratulations on that Bear 100 finish. It was well earned.
Thank you, guys.
So big thank you goes out to the Honey Badger,
HB.
AKA Jon Hallows. But we don't call him that. We call him Honey
John,
Badger.
who's John?
Yeah, who's John? Yeah, there's a million Johns out there, but there's only one Honey Badger.
True that.
Yes. So, like we said, it was a pleasure to coach him. It's been awesome to get to know him as a friend as well. And it was so cool to see him just annihilate the Bear 100. He ran that like a veteran.
That was one of the highlights of our year last year. It was awesome.
Yeah. So, Melody, what's the takeaway from our conversation or even our experience of just coaching and being with Jon?
Well, my biggest takeaway is, and because this is probably the most relatable thing to me in my life right now, but he puts his family first. He mentioned at the beginning of this podcast how he tries to make it to all of his kids' events, and that's where he spends most of his time. And then after he does that, then he fits in his training. And I think that's what this is about. And some people might disagree with me here, but I think when you're making those sacrifices and putting your family first, I think God blesses you for that. And we talked a little bit about that during the podcast. We talked about structuring training around your life, not your life around training. And I know that this is a trail running podcast and we teach you how to train and how to run 100 miles. We want to help, again, the average Joe who has a family and a job and other priorities. And I feel like HB is a great example of putting God and his family first and making plenty of time to get his training in and do what he loves.
Yeah, he is. That he is. What I took away from our conversation with him is I had a couple things that I wanted to hit on. I like what he said there at the end about, the key to his finish was like getting coaches, but also just having a community of friends around him. And it made me, and he mentioned each one by name and their role and how they helped him get to that 100-mile finish. How it wasn't just him, or it wasn't even just two people, it was a whole community. And made me think about putting on the Bear River Trail Race last year
Hmm.
and how I would call it was a successful race, especially for year one, but it wasn't just us that made it happen. Like
No way.
there was such a big community that stepped up, that we had, people, friends sign up. We had friends telling their friends about it. We had volunteers coming out. We had people driving like 3-4 hours away to come volunteer to help us out to put on this race. And I'm sure Honey Badger probably felt the same way, except, he was running the race. He had people reach out to him, come help him, give him advice, take time, go on a training run with him, go to the gym with him, whatever it is, crew him, coach him, pace him, whatever it was. Everyone plays a role in each
Even
other's
people
lives.
sending text messages and
Yeah.
videos and just cheering
Yeah.
you on.
Yeah.
And I just have to throw this in, but we have said that we felt more love when we did our first 100-mile race than we even felt on our wedding day,
yeah.
because we just had so much support.
Yeah. And anyways, it was just, so him bringing that up about the support that he felt was the key to his success. I mean, I can just echo that. Like, whenever I have been successful in something, it hasn't been just me. Now, sure, I've been putting in work and effort and working at it, but it was the people around me cheering me on and lending a helping hand that made
The aid station volunteers
made it successful.
Yeah.
So
awesome takeaway.
Anyways, and you know what? Scratch the second takeaway. That's it. Let's just do that one.
What?
Nothing.
Scratch the second takeaway?
I said I had 2 takeaways.
Oh, okay. Okay.
You thought I was like scratching your takeaway.
Yeah. My takeaway was way better.
Yeah. Scratch
what you just said.
Anyways, well, everybody, thank you for joining us today here on the podcast. Like Jon mentioned, we are putting on the Bear River Trail Race again this year. But along with that, we are putting on the Uinta Wilderness Ultra. So we would highly encourage you guys to check out our website, trail100.com/races.
Again, trail100.com/races.
And you can check out our races, and we cannot let this podcast end without giving a shout out to our race sponsors. We have Ogden Running Company sponsoring the Bear River Trail Race. They've stepped up big time helping us out this year. We could not be more excited. They're even giving discounts to runners who sign up for our race. So pretty impressive. They're hooking the running community up. I love what Jeremy Tolman there at Ogden Running Company is doing. He also has an online store that is accessible with the discount when you sign up for the race. I will throw a link to their store in the show notes below. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. And remember, if you want to run 100 miles, make it happen.
Running 100 miles seems impossible, and maybe even kind of crazy. And it is, but we believe in big crazy dreams. That's why we ran 100 miles. It was such a life-changing experience for us, we decided to devote this podcast to preparing and inspiring you to run your first ultra race.
Are you ready to feel the highest highs and the lowest lows? Are you ready to do what you once thought was impossible? Are you ready for your trail to 100?